Welcome to another episode of Wikipedia Weekly. I'm your host, Andrew Lee, also known as user Fuzzheado on English Wikipedia. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about a really exciting project called iNaturalist and the whole idea of citizen science now being enabled by our mobile phones and these high-resolution capture devices that we all have. What are the possibilities for this phenomenon and the Wikimedia movement? And we're really happy to have some of the top folks working on this right now in our studio right now. So before we get too far, you might be watching us on one of four platforms. We are on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live, we're also on Periscope, Twitter, and also on Twitch. So if you are on any of those platforms, you can actually chat and talk back to us, and we will see those comments, and we can surface and bring up some of your comments and questions on screen if you have any. The only thing is, for folks on Facebook, you might need to go in and authenticate yourselves. So if you are on Facebook, we ask that you go to streamyard.com/Facebook. That way, when you comment, we can see your name and likeness on the screen. So that will help a lot to have that information on the screen there. So without further ado, let's start getting into our conversation with our co-host, Jan. Say hello, Jan.
Hello, Jan Einali, user Einali on all the projects. A little bit of a citizen science in some aspects, but we're going to learn more about that today.
Excellent. And we're welcoming Dario. Hello, Dario.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dario. I go by Dartar on Wiki projects, and I've been very passionate about iNaturalist citizen science projects for about 2 years now.
Great. And Dario used to be with the Wikimedia Foundation in research, and now where are you? You're in San Francisco still, is that right?
I am, yeah. I'm still in San Francisco. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And we have Andras. Hello, Andra. Tell us more about you.
I'm Andra Waagmeester. I'm based on Wikidata, known as Andra Waag, and Wikipedia, of course. I am based in Antwerp, Belgium, and I'm an old, like Dario. I think we started at the same time at the Wikimania in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, where we started looking into iNaturalist and how that cross-pollinate with the Wikimedia infrastructure.
Right. Great. So tell us a little bit about what I think is pretty exciting, the whole prospect of a lot of folks in the domain of, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but everything from bird watching to taking pictures of foliage and plants to furry animals, and folks who are observing these things in different apps in this whole movement of citizen science, and then now being a feeder of certain types of information that we can use in the Wikimedia movement. Tell us a little bit about that landscape.
Oh yeah, sure. So here I'm featuring one of the entry screen of iNaturalist when you're on the desktop. So iNaturalist is a platform where it works basically from your phone, and anyone with a phone can use it. But there is also this website, and what you do is you make a picture and you upload it to and this will be discussed later. But you upload the picture to the website, and then the iNaturalist community will then cater. Will tell you what it is, or will discuss. There is some auto recognition or suggestion mode in there, and then and based on that, the community it will look a bit like this. So this is my desktop page. I'm following some people who are observing. Here we have the one picture. So this picture was uploaded, and what I can now do is if I know what this is, I can say this. Do I agree with this observation that this is of subfamily Heliconea? And there is a button where I can agree, so it will align with other pictures of that observation. And if I agree, I can agree, and it will lead to some additional confirmation of what is seen. So here is a list of mine observations, and where you can see where, for example, here is a beauty that I saw in my garden yesterday. So I took a picture of that, then thought it was the green shield bug. Then someone, Lupuli Roland, comes along and said, yes, this is a Palomiprazina or a green shield bug. And then if more and more people assign it, it will get some level of research grade. So the research grade indicates that with some certainty, this is indeed the green shield bug.
Neat. And so research grade sounds really officious and really formal, but it actually is just like the next tier up from general observation, right?
Yes. So it's the next observation. If somebody agrees with you, it is, and there are some, and I must confess that I haven't looked really into it, but there is some metric in place. What is because people can disagree, and I think I have one here close by. So I recently started exploring the micro life from a local pond. So I at first thought it was of the kingdom of the protozoa, which was this picture, and then some comes along and says, I disagrees that this is a protozoa and suggests it's an infraclass Clausoderomorpha. So yes, there is a lot of agreement and disagreement, and there is a metric in place so here you see the level it's matter of life and it needs ID.
Neat. And so when the initial ID is made, is it just other people in the community, or is there any AI or any other kind of algorithms that help do the identification?
There is some AI involved. So let's take another one. I can go back to the Explore. So if you upload, there is a feature that says what am I seeing, but you can also, so I can actually suggest an identification, and now it is loading suggestions. So now it says this picture, and it has some suggestions. Can be a Philanthus tenellus or an Averroa caramopola, and then you will get also some indication that it has been seen nearby. So based on these features, but I must say the accuracy of these suggestions are mixed. So I use it as an indication, but not as a driving force.
Right. And this world, Dario, since you were doing research and leading things in this area of like AI, I mean, this is a major area where the AI has been built up quite well over the years, right? In terms of machine learning and recognizing things. And there are multiple apps that kind of do this, where you can send in a picture of a bird, plant life, whatever, and it does a pretty decent job normally of giving you something close to it, right?
Yeah, the accuracy of different systems depends, of course, on how much data they have for building their own classifiers. I would say that in general, for general identification of species across different kingdoms, iNaturalist is still pretty good. There are some apps that are more domain specific. And so if you're into birds, for example, there's an app developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's called Merlin. And they have classifiers and image recognition tools that are really trained on literally like tens of millions of images of birds, every possible angle and every stage of their life and every subspecies you can find across the planet. And because of that, their accuracy is higher in general than what you can find on iNaturalist. So there are many of these systems. What I like about them is that they're very, they really embody this notion of AI and humans working together. So an algorithm will never be able to give you like a final high accuracy result in all of the cases that you have. But when you combine the power of the crowd and an algorithm, that you can get something like these projects have been doing, which has been pretty amazing in the past couple of years.
Right. Yeah. So Andra, so after you share that information with iNaturalist, then you have a community that clusters around it, hopefully gets it to what we call research grade, which means that a number of eyeballs and algorithms have gotten it to a point where we're fairly high confidence that that's what it is. Yeah. And then that's some interesting things can happen because iNaturalist has the option of using Creative Commons license, right?
Exactly. So I indeed good that you mentioned that. I forgot to mention that. But when you register to iNaturalist, and you have the option to select any of the Creative Commons licenses you can pick. Unfortunately, the default license is CC BY and C. So most of the observations in iNaturalist are not compatible with the Wikimedia licenses. However, users can select a Wikimedia compatible license, being CC0, etc., and that allows sharing of those observations into Wikimedia platforms.
Right. And we found this a little bit tricky because you can change it pretty easily on the desktop if you know what you're looking for, but on a mobile system, it's a little bit hard to change that license, right?
That's correct. And so it's but still there is the number of users, and maybe we should use this opportunity to reach out to more iNaturalist users to switch the license. Right. But in October for WikiDataCon, we did some counts, and it's a very low number of people that use a Wikimedia compatible license. Yet we're still talking about millions of pictures that can be used. So it's already substantial.
Right. That's right. Oh, so before I forget, we actually have Mike Dickinson here. Mike, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Mike. Mike, you're joining us from New Zealand, is that correct?
That's right. It's 8 a.m. in New Zealand. So.
Oh, wow. So Mike has also been a prolific user of this and worked with biodiversity content. So we were just showing how iNaturalist works in general and the CC license. I thought what we could show real quickly is what I think is the thing that, and I'm very new to this, what I thought was quite exciting. Andra mentioned that one of the things they did at WikiDataCon recently was show folks how to use the mobile app. So what I could show you here is how this is the mobile app for iNaturalist. I'm not going to take a real picture here, but you can either choose a picture that you have already or take one live in the field. And what happens here is, let me show you an example here. This is a picture of a bird that I was outside my house the other day, and suddenly it's research grade, which is quite interesting. So I took a picture, and then maybe someone of high reputation confirmed it, but also the only birds of this type that were seen near me were like this one bird. I guess if they saw like 5 or 6 different types that are yellow and of these markings that there's some ambiguity, then they mark it something else. But here you can see that this picture that I took is research grade at the bottom, right? And that's where I think the real power of this is going out in the field, and suddenly your mobile phone is not just a tool for getting pretty pictures. It's actually a really powerful tool for now collaborating, contributing to Wikimedia Commons, as long as I change the license to that Creative Commons compatible one. And a lot of people don't know that NC is not good for Wikimedia Commons. So don't choose the NC. That's the headline of today. But what happens after this? Well, after this is there, this is actually in the database of iNaturalist, and there actually is an API that you can hit with a programming language. So Dario is going to walk us through a really cool tool that Ryan Caldari made, I think at a hackathon, right? To actually say, if you're looking at a commons category and it matches up with the exact name of this species in iNaturalist, there's a special button that you can use to bring in, or at least show you the Creative Commons compatible images that you can import into Commons. Right, Dario?
Yeah. So I'd like to show you a little bit of this workflow. And by the way, I want to start by saying, I see now there are 5 dudes on this panel. I just accepted like 30 minutes ago to participate in this. I want to say like there are some amazing citizen scientists out there in the Wikimedia movement and in iNaturalist you should really follow. So apologies for that. Yes. But for today, you have to listen to what I have to say here. But hopefully that can get you excited.
Can I put in a plug for my country person, Siobhan Leachman, who is
Absolutely.
not only a powerhouse in Wikidata in New Zealand, but also an avid iNaturalist person, and who helped join the dots for me connecting those two tools.
I think we all started because of her. So it's a shame not to have her here. Hey, Siobhan.
Yes.
All right. And so with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a demo of how I use iNaturalist for bridging the gap between this amazing citizen science platform and what Wikimedia projects can offer. The reason why this is really fascinating is that iNaturalist is literally a gold mine of imagery of biodiversity from all over the planet, contributed by users, about literally any species. If you're interested in birds or herbs or plants or mushrooms. There's basically like a ton of data and high quality images you can drill down into. I care a lot about birds. I'm a bit passionate about birds. And so you can see that currently iNaturalist has a pretty good number where there are 5 million observations. iNaturalist, an observation means an upload. So, well, in most cases, an observation on iNaturalist will have some media attached to it, which makes it really appealing because then it means that you could potentially see if you can transfer it to commons and reuse it in Wikimedia projects, as long as it's using a free license that is Wikimedia compatible. One of the cool things is that you can select here in this amazing Explore interface. Imagine that you're interested in, I don't know, icterids. It's one of my favorite families of blackbirds and orioles from the Americas. You can actually filter here and see, well, I would like to see only images that are CC BY license, for example. You update the search, and there you go. And you have basically here a map or a grid or a list of all the icterids that are available that use a CC BY license. And you'll see there are some pretty high quality images that you can potentially transfer immediately to Wikipedia or Commons. So let me show you briefly how that works. I've been following lately the work of this incredible naturalist called Thibaut Aronson. Thibaut is a botanist, but actually he travels the world and he's passionate about birds. And he's taking like incredible pictures of very often endemic birds or endangered species from all over the world. These are some examples from Peru, but he has taken pictures from literally every corner of the planet. And in many cases, what strikes me is that many of these species have no image or a really shitty image from Wikipedia. In some cases, they may have a digitized illustration from say, early 20th century catalog, which is great in a way because we can resurface that content and we repurpose it on Wikipedia. But at the same time, it kind of sucks if you're trying to illustrate like a live species, not to have an image of the animal right in the context and its habitat. So here, how the magic happens, and this is something that I do at night when I'm bored or I can't sleep. I browse these images, and you'll see this is a buff-breasted earth creeper. This is a very a fantastic image that Thibaut has uploaded to iNaturalist. It is research grade, which means at least 2 people, including himself, identified this as with the same taxon. And well, if you see, let's open the link about the species. So these species have been observed only 42 times in iNaturalist. That's a pretty low number, which means if we're lucky to find an image that is open licensed and has high quality, that makes it a pretty good candidate for something that may or may not exist in Wikipedia. So let's see what happens in Wikipedia for this species. So I have here the Wikipedia article for the buff-breasted earth creeper. And as it turns out, every species page on iNaturalist has a bunch of tabs that show you the distribution based, again, on the observations in iNaturalist, information about the taxonomy, both upwards and downwards. You can see the subspecies of the species, information about the status, et cetera, et cetera. But critically, it also shows you a copy of the Wikipedia article. And if we open the Wikipedia article, we'll see that, well, it's a stub. There is some interesting information here. You will notice that there is a ton of information pulled from Wikidata, all these crazy identifiers at the bottom, including the one from iNaturalist, identify that species in different catalogs. But there isn't really much content. And actually, the image of the species, it's great, but it's a bit tiny. So maybe that's not the best possible image for a Wikipedia article. So let's figure out how we can improve this. Typically what I do is I find a category on Commons that corresponds to the species. I go to this image, click on more details, Scroll to the bottom, and there we go. Upercertia valdirostris is the scientific name of the species. And we see that in comments, it has 4 images, some of which are actually pretty decent quality. You can see also here that are pretty low resolution, like 300 kilobytes is not a great image. And this tool that we mentioned before that Caldari developed is called iNaturalist Import, allows you to basically retrieve very easily free licensed media from iNaturalist that match the same species. Again, as long as the species has that link to iNaturalist. And again, you'll see here that we have the iNaturalist taxon ID in the info box. As long as that link exists and the Wikidata item is mapped to iNaturalist, then you can easily import these images. So for example, if we go here, there we go. We find the image that I showed you before by Thibaut, ready to be uploaded. This is very similar to what some of you may be familiar with Flickr. Flickr is used for a very long time a workflow to facilitate importing into Commons. So let's go ahead. I'm going to upload this image. This opens a screen that you're probably familiar with. If you're not, you can just scroll to the bottom and upload the file. There's a bunch of metadata. And there we go. So this image that used to be a naturalist is now added to Commons with a unique name. This is using the identifier of the photo. So there should be at least a notion of a unique identification for this picture. Since we're nice people, what we could do here, we could also add some structured data and say that this actually depicts the buff-breasted earth creeper, and it's a prominent. Okay, so this also adds some structured data to the common entry. And now once that we have this, we can take the name of the file and go back to the original Wikipedia article, which hopefully we will find back in the category. Actually, we can find it. There we go. And let's say we want to add this image as a better illustration for this article. We edit. Oops, I didn't do it right. Okay, just 1 second. I'm going to retrieve this real quick. Okay, file name without the prefix, and go back to Wikipedia. I add this, publish changes, adding a higher quality image of the bird, and I publish it. And the really cool thing is that you now have a high quality image imported from iNaturalist that gives full attribution to the author in the Commons page. You see here, there's this nice banner that says comes from iNaturalist, so you can go back and discover it. And usually what I do once this is done, I go to the user page on iNaturalist.
Nice.
And say, hey, Thibaut, I just added this beautiful image to the Wikipedia article.
That's nice. I always forget to do that.
Yeah,
That's a really
that's
good
important.
point. Yeah.
Have you ever had any pushback from people saying, "Oh, I don't want you to do that"? Almost always, people are okay with it, right?
I never had, in my limited experience, I've never had any problem with people accepting this.
Right.
Mike, you may have more experience.
Yeah, Dario, that's a very cool step that I sometimes forget to do, but it's a wonderful way to get people on side with the project. The biggest problem, as you pointed out, is that so many of these observations are NC because that is the default for iNaturalist, and you often have to negotiate with people and convince them to do a mass alteration of their license in iNat before
Absolutely.
Wikipedia folks can use them. And this is one of the tools to help show them that this is what can happen, is point them to an article that has another observation for another user that's become the definition image for that species. And once they do that, and the other problem is, of course, this process of switching, mass changing all those licenses is not obvious. You have to talk them right through the settings, make sure they're changing their photo license, not their observation license, which is another story, and make sure they're changing them all retrospectively. So you really need to sort of point them to a help guide or a step-by-step to make that work. But once that's done, suddenly you have maybe hundreds or thousands of observations that are all potential material for, Wikidata or Wikipedia. So people seem very receptive to this. I've approached quite a few users individually, and I've had almost no pushback. And most people are amazed to know that their stuff can be used in a Wikimedia project, and they usually have no problem with the license because they didn't even know they were setting a license when they signed up. The help for starting up with iNaturalist does not stress this point.
No, I can add to that. I have tried to, so sometimes you want to increase a Wikipedia article and there's just not one observation yet with the proper license. And then I reach out to the iNaturalist community, and it is common for people responding, yes, sure, but it's already open. So there is still this hurdle of NC that is causing a lot of confusion. But yeah, I have never had any pushback as well.
Right. Usually people who have the knowledge to change the license have a pretty good grasp of that they want it to be spread. I guess that's the explanation. Was there? I remember there was some talk of maybe trying to convince iNaturalist to change the default license. Has there been any talk in that area?
Yeah, it's been.
No, you go.
Yeah, so it's complicated. It's complicated because the community on iNaturalist has very different feelings about licenses, and they feel that changing their default to, say, CC BY or CC 0 would alienate part of the community, which I understand. Even though, again, like Mike said, in principle, anyone can choose if you want to have your images like on full copyright, you can do this. If you want to release them as CC 0, like I do, you can totally do this as well. But the idea of what you set as a default is a really sensitive topic. And so for whatever reason, the organization didn't feel in a position to basically push this as a default license. So while currently, I don't think they will be considering like switching to CC BY as a default, what they seem to be keen on exploring is the idea of supporting more of these campaigns and basically showcasing the benefits of having a free license media file that can be reused. And in many cases, like we said earlier, like the response from somebody saying, oh my God, like my picture now became the official image of the species on Wikipedia is a huge thing. Many people who are not monetizing necessarily their work, they're not selling photos to magazines, you'll be more than delighted to be able to say, my image now gets tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views because it's now the official image of that species on Wikipedia. So there's a strong incentive for us to do this, even though it is not the default license on iNaturalist.
No, and I'm to add to that. So there is, I think it's worth mentioning there are multiple competing apps. So where I'm based, there is one app that is much bigger than iNaturalist when it comes to local observations, but they have only one license, and so for me that's a no-brainer, no deal. But so it's already really, really great that iNaturalist has this option for users to. So I kind of gave up personally to convince to make it a default license because I'm already happy with how it is now.
All right.
There's been some discussion on iNaturalist itself in the community about this. And there was a very interesting long post, which we can, I'm sure, find the link for, where one of the major observers, I think it's in Fungus, simply posted and said he's going to refuse to identify other people's observations if they're not under an open license, because he has a limited amount of time and he wants to put his volunteer work into a place where it can benefit and make the images most shareable. And this was quite a controversial. Oh, Siobhan's, I can see is just joined us and is watching us live. Hello, Siobhan. This was a controversial view, but he made a really good case, and I think a lot of people have bought into that. And by saying that it's perfectly okay if people want to copyright for all rights reserved their observations, that's fine. There's a place for them. But he personally has made the choice to support open science and knowledge in that, which is really nice. And on the other hand, the local franchise, iNaturalist NZ, is run by part-time or volunteer scientists who have continued to evangelize it amongst local users here. I had a sit down with them and talked them through all the issues. And after some initial resistance, just talking remotely, they've come around to the idea that, yes, this is actually a potentially great opportunity for them. And they are very interested in doing things like bulk mailouts to all of the users, or putting up a banner on login to encourage people to change their licenses, come and see how. So I think having those conversations at a local level and talking to individual power users as well can make a real difference in shifting the needle. But sort of general abstract conversation on bulletin boards doesn't seem to make change happen. You really have to make those personal connections.
Right.
Can I add one thing on that topic of the importance of a local contribution, local participation? There's a topic that will be very familiar to people in the Wikimedia movement, and it's a question of knowledge gaps and the overrepresentation of topics from the global north or Western world. If you go to iNaturalist, there's a ton of features from North America or Western Europe. But the great thing is that there's now really fast growth of these communities in parts of the world that maybe don't necessarily have historically had access to these projects, but now with a smartphone can go out and document the local biodiversity. And so I think it's thinking about the broader picture of the Wikimedia strategy and how to bring local knowledge is often, yeah, Shoban!
Hey!
Hello.
Finally!
Hi.
So glad you could join us.
I just threw clothes on, literally woke up and just threw clothes on and joined you. So I hope you don't mind.
Of course.
No,
No, we're asking for you before if you didn't hear. So that's great.
I learned about this 20 minutes ago. So, I just maybe gonna finish the sentence and say the importance of engaging local communities. This is really something that should speak to the Wikimedians who are passionate about knowledge gaps and local knowledge. There's a ton of knowledge that you can directly contribute about your local biodiversity, or if you can't, I've made some friends in Brazil who are posting pictures of endangered species of insects in Brazil, and they don't necessarily have to do this complex translation from iNaturalist to Wikipedia, but hey, I'm going to help you out, and now your image illustrates an article that didn't have any image, and you're there on Wikipedia.
Yeah, Mike and I have had really good responses to when we ask our sort of local New Zealand biodiversity experts who go out, we're talking about some of the best botanists, entomologists in the country. They're going out taking photos and have no idea about the licensing of their images or anything. And as soon as you say, or educate them to say, if you can openly license your images, and then you explain what Wikipedians can do with those images, they don't have to get involved because they've got their own area of expertise. They've got their own area of passion. At most, it might be iNaturalist, and they may not necessarily be interested in the Wikipedia and Wikimedia movement. But if you explain to them, if they openly license their images, especially in iNaturalist, and it allows us to do things with it, all of a sudden they are so generous. And then you get these amazing, massive, tens of thousands of images available for people who are passionate in Wikipedia like us to use. So yeah, engaging, I think, with your local community, even if it's not getting them involved in the Wikipedia movement per se, is really important.
Right. And can you tell us how, we blame you. We credit you with getting us addicted to this tool. So tell us a little bit how you got involved with it at the beginning, because I was just so fascinated when I was introduced to it late in the game.
I learned about the tool at the Merlin Wikidata get-together. I just ended up, I was involved in iNaturalist. I've always been interested in writing Wikipedia articles and populating Wikidata items. images and Wikidata items for New Zealand biodiversity. And I started off doing that because right at the beginning, it was due to Auckland Museum. Auckland Museum is one of the most open glands in New Zealand. It's open by default, closed by exception, and they had some beautiful photographs of insects. And not many in comparison to other institutions, but enough that I was interested in actually writing articles and looking at the collectors of their specimens. And so I just went off on a little journey. And then once I got addicted to actually adding specimen items and photographs to my articles, I started looking around for more images. And because there's very few, most of the insects I'm interested in are endemic to New Zealand. And so there's actually very few openly licensed images of them. And then I went to Landcare Research, which is our Crown research institution in New Zealand, and they had a whole load of moths, which I went to town on. But I was still desperate. I just didn't want to restrict myself to moths. I was desperate for anything that was New Zealand endemic, and that's when I discovered iNaturalist, that I could actually download them manually from iNaturalist if they're openly licensed and manually upload them into Commons. And it was such a laborious, a work of love is what it ended up to be. And as soon as I discovered the tool in Berlin, it was like, it blew my mind. It was amazing.
Right. And I can't remember, Dario, whether you mentioned for folks how to install it, because it's not available to everyone, right? You need to install it in your own common.js file. So if you don't know how to do that, you can figure it out, but tell us a little bit about how you do this.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So you can always go through the manual process of like saving an image from iNaturalist and uploading it, adding the metadata. This tool by Caldari makes it like enormously easier to literally, as I showed you, like click on a button and have the script take care of all the workflow. The way you do this, you will need to go to what Andrew's showing here. So that page.
I guess I can show the common.js, like where it goes. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's a part that is not tremendously user-friendly.
Right. So if you've never created this file, it is kind of weird that you need to visit this page, right? So it's /common.js. And then you can go to mine and just copy exactly what is in my page and put this line in there. And the nice thing is you don't have to know anything about computer code, just add that one line and then you have that function. And where would people see that, Dario? Only when they're on a Commons cat?
Yeah, they can see this on a cat. I'm gonna bring back my screen here if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and share it again.
As Dario pointed out, a cat that links directly to an iNaturalist species. Yeah, so sometimes we have taxonomic mismatches between Commons, Wikipedia, and iNaturalist, and that link doesn't work. But in most cases, it's fine. High taxa don't seem to show up, but individual species do.
Yeah, so this only works at the moment for a species, not for higher level taxa. And as long as there is basically a matching Wikidata item that again needs to have the iNaturalist taxon ID, which, as you can see here, is the backlink to iNaturalist. Once this template exists, and very often I find myself creating one when it doesn't have it. It's basically this Wikidata info box. Once that exists, and basically this page is linked to iNaturalist, this button will appear if you install the script that Andrew just showed. There's an additional glitch. I don't know if it's a feature or not, but you can only effectively use this tool if you have what is it called? Image upload privileges on Commons. I forgot the exact name of the. Yeah,
which you have to ask for authorization to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I can't understand why. Because
I don't understand either.
Extended uploader.
Might be that one. Yeah.
So the average person would have to ask for that privilege at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think we should get the community to accept the fact that all of this is coming from a very controlled. This is not Flickr or
right.
Or
it's just coming from people who know what they're doing most of the time.
Yeah.
Not necessarily synonymously, but just looking at it from a, uploading and the workflow, I haven't seen anyone using it who doesn't know the ins and outs of how the systems all interlink and work. Yeah.
So hopefully that can be changed. Yeah.
And it's too narrow at the moment. We need more people doing it.
Exactly.
So we need two things to speed up this process. One is we need to be going through taxa, checking taxonomy and making that link to iNaturalist, because in some cases that hasn't been done, so the tool can't actually connect. And the second is we then need to start systematically working through taxa that are most efficient in photographs. And not every photograph should be imported. Some of the photographs don't really have that educational use. They're not very good. So there's a human eye needed to discern which needs to go in there, which is the most useful, particularly things that aren't standard, like flowers or fruit, for example, for a plant, which are not the most commonly photographed.
Fruits.
Yeah.
Things that people don't normally think about. See, I do it so that other people can then identify the species. And my workflow is to try and look at images from two perspectives. One, a licensing perspective. So I will upload even not the crappiest photo, but certainly one that may not necessarily be the most pretty and beautiful photo if it's a CC0 license, just so that it's open to anyone to reuse for any purpose. But I'll also upload those ones which show really interesting, more unusual aspects of the species. And that could be things like the roots of a plant, the flowering at a particular stage of flowering, larvae of butterflies, things that people don't normally have, eggs of insects, or larvae of insects, or just different life stages, really, so that you can then actually illustrate an article properly, not just with the gorgeous butterfly, but it's quite foul-looking larvae and not very enthusiastically looking beautiful egg or something. You want to have the whole life cycle there.
Can I add one additional example? Female birds. There's a huge lack of high-quality imagery for female species of birds that represented with, juveniles to.
There's a gender gap for birds. Is that right?
There's a gender gap for birds. Yeah.
There's a gender gap in museums for birds. They've just an interesting published paper showed that on museum displays are overwhelmingly biased towards male animals because they're often the most colourful ones.
Well, if you look at a species Wikidata item, normally there's only one image in the Wikidata item. And I can tell you from experience, from the ones I deal with, it tends to be the boy image. So in my little fight the power moment, I will put the female species image first, the male image second, and so that it's the female species image that tends to pop to the top. Because I don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's
not. That's
really
terrible.
Yeah.
And you can tag them, right? Presumably, you can also say Wikidata, like one is
female, this is male. But I mean, technically, on a Wikidata item, I would like to see, larvae, egg, female, male, all the life stages. Because having it as an adult that doesn't encapsulate the species for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And similarly, in Wikipedia, in the info box, there is a facility for more than one image, and I would always want to have both male and female pictured, but many people don't seem to, either don't want to or don't seem to realize that there's an image too properly field available there.
Yeah, I don't think they realize, because you have to go in and, the template is a bit trickier.
Right. We need to let Dario go soon, but I'm wondering, for all of you, what would you like to see next, or what would you call on the community to do? One of the reasons why we're having this topic right now is there's a hackathon tomorrow and Sunday, and one of the reasons why this episode might be useful is get people to go out and take pictures. Hackathon is not just coding, it's going out and taking photos and transferring them. What things would you like to see happen, either with the tools or the community, on moving this whole thing forward? Maybe Dario first.
I mean, I would like to, for me, learning about the Citizen Science Project, and thanks to people like Shaban and others, has been really transformative. It was an excuse to spend less time in front of a screen and spend more time outside. But it opened up this entire idea that there's data and knowledge everywhere and you can basically do the same thing you do as a Wikipedian or a Wikidata contributors, literally just being out with your smartphone. If you can afford doing that, it's something that is transformative for you, and it produces really valuable data for everybody else.
Right. How about Siobhan?
I'd like to, if people do get involved with iNaturalist, I'd like them to attempt to not just take photos of the mammals or the more pretty species that attract our eye, but to look more carefully and to try and take photos of things that don't necessarily first catch your attention, because they're the ones that can be quite important, but there are no photos of them. So, and nothing to help other people recognize what they are. So yeah, that's what I'd like people to do, to think about the more unattractive to our eye, but possibly the more interesting subjects.
Yeah, maybe you can help surface like most needed images that people can shoot by priority or something, right? Yeah. Mike?
Two things. One is Kaldari's wonderful tool. I would love to see a concerted effort to play around with the user interface and experience. For example, making preview photos a little larger and having some photographer or metadata preview tagged onto them, because you're often having to look through 20 or 30 photos to try and pick either the one that you yourself shot or that is the most useful. So keeping on, not just stopping this tool as so often happens in Wikimedia at the sort of good but not great stage. Secondly, this has opened up, particularly the work where we've convinced users to suddenly change mass licenses. We're now in a situation where we have maybe 10 or 20,000 usable photos from a single user. This is a potential community event, and it can bring in not just Wikimedians, but also botanists and amateur naturalists and photographers can all sit down together and say, we're going to take, this is honoring John Barkler's photography work, for example, spend a whole day going through every photo he's taken in iNaturalist, finding all the good ones and importing and using them, and then sharing the results with him. That would be something that would even get some press as well as real buy-in from the community, the naturalist community.
Yeah, pick your super users and give them some love.
Yeah, exactly.
Andres, what do you think? What should we be doing, or what new things?
So there are two things. So one small thing is, so if you go out with the Wikimedia in mind, you look for pretty pictures. But at the same time, we should also try to make as many pictures as possible, because you sometimes need more pictures for the iNaturalist community to be able to annotate what you have seen. So I usually now, I'm exaggerating. I'm usually making 10 to 15 pictures of one observation when I upload that, and that really helps. The other thing is, and I think Dario already mentioned that Mike already mentioned, there is a huge community of experts. Only yesterday I saw a bug, and then through iNaturalist, I got in contact with a French expert on that specific bug, and then we start discussing. So that is really, really cool. It opens also up to that expertise. So that's the second. And then finally, what is a bit frustrating and would be nice to happen in the Wikipedia. So I now do the full cycle: observation, put it in iNaturalist, upload it to Wiki Commons, and then start writing the Wikipedia article. A lot of these articles are just 2 lines. So and it would be really nice if we can get a bit more coverage beyond the so a bit of structure. How can we do in Wikipedia if you see a moth? What are the characteristics that you need to identify to see what you have? And if we can reach the Wikipedia community to populate the different language Wikipedias to help that, then you can actually bridge the 2 communities, because then you can use iNaturalist and then already use Wikipedia to identify while you're in the field what you're observing.
Well, that's the other thing, because iNaturalist basically ingests the Wikipedia article. You want to make sure that you're writing for not just the Wikipedia audience and the scholarly audience, you're also writing for the iNaturalist audience. So you want to put things out like the host of the species, where the species is found, what part of New Zealand, if it's a New Zealand endemic species, whether it looks different from something, why it looks different, or what it looks different from, even species in the same genus, for example. So think about the audience when you're actually writing the article from a iNaturalist standpoint, as well as like a wiki standpoint and a general knowledge standpoint.
those first two sentences are the preview in iNat. So often those are very turgid. This is an acoelomate gastropod of the family diner, which is the least useful thing for someone who just wants to know what it is. So we need to think really hard about how we're formulating those initial stubs.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming. And Siobhan, I'm so glad you could join us. And sorry for the early hour. Sorry for the crazy early hour. We tried to find something that fit.
Right.
I'm so glad we finally got all the right people in this conversation. So
Cool.
if any of you are free, go ahead.
Add some positive news in the end, because I think recently the user rights were changed, because what you needed was upload by URL. And right now on Commons, all users have that, and it didn't used to be that. So perhaps this script is available for everyone now.
Okay. Well done.
That makes.
I didn't do it. I just did some research.
Well, it's news we didn't know before, so that's great to hear.
Cool.
Great. So hopefully some folks might have some time this weekend to play with iNaturalist and that script. If you have any questions, go into the Telegram channel for the hackathon. I'm sure you can find one of us or other folks who can help you walk through that process. It'd be great to see a lot of uploads this weekend from that. So thanks again, folks, for coming.
We do have a wiki project where people.
Oh yeah, let's show that. Where is that?
Yeah, I can. If you just give me one more second, I can share that. I think I have it ready here. This is it's on wiki. It's on Wikidata, and
nice.
And there are some scripts in there. I think there are instructions on how to use the different tools, and you can join by adding yourself. And,
perfect.
Let the community grow.
So that is on Wikidata, Wiki Project iNaturalist.
Yes.
Great. I will put that in our notes so people can find that. All right. Thanks again, and keep watching Wikipedia Weekly. Folks can send folks to the YouTube channel or the Facebook Live to watch this again. Go back to the beginning and kind of see the progression through using the app and everything. It's really useful and it's really fun. It really adds a new dimension to doing those nature walks, and the stuff you capture on your phone is not just for your enjoyment. It's got a great number of possibilities once you upload it to iNaturalist. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks for hosting.
Right.